Welcome to Animated English Story. Today's emotional story is about Sofia, a poor girl who sells flowers in the rain to help. This taught me the real power of kindness. Even through the darkest storms, we must never give up. Before we start, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Animated English Story for more emotional and inspiring stories.
City lights flickered on, casting long shadows across the intersection. 12-year-old Sofia stepped onto the asphalt, her bare feet calloused from the rough pavement. She clutched a woven basket of wilting roses against her faded yellow hoodie. As traffic halted, she wove between idling cars, extending her hand toward every closed window. Drivers looked straight ahead, ignoring her plea. One man rolled his window up as she approached, the glass clicking loudly in the humid air. By midnight, rain turned the street into a dark mirror of neon signs. Sofia knelt by the curb, counting a few crumpled bills. She wiped mud from her cheek and whispered to the empty air, "Tomorrow will be better." She then began the long walk home. She pushed open the door to a room where the walls were peeling in thick strips. Her father lay on a thin mattress, his breathing ragged and shallow. Sofia set her basket aside, poured water from a plastic jug, and gently lifted his head to help him drink. There was no rest for her. She boiled a small pot of thin soup and began cleaning the damp floor. The sound of a passing train vibrated through the floorboards, rattling empty medicine bottles on the table. She pulled a worn blanket over her father, sat on the floor, and watched the rhythmic rise and fall of his chest until the morning light finally touched the window. Sofia stood alone on the street corner, her thin coat soaked through by the freezing rain. Her small basket held only 3 wilted roses, shivering as blinding headlights swept past, splashing muddy water onto her legs. The world felt cold, gray, and entirely indifferent to her plight. At home, her father sat in their dark, one-room apartment. He clutched his bandaged, immobile legs, staring at a stack of old medical textbooks he could no longer use. Back on the street, Sofia gripped her basket, her knuckles turning white as the weight of his survival rested on her shoulders. She stepped toward a businessman, holding out a rose, but he brushed past without a glance. A woman with an umbrella shook her head and walked faster. Sofia knelt on the wet pavement, shielding the flowers from the downpour. She counted her coins. It was not enough. Suddenly, a car slowed. Sofia stood, hair plastered to her face, holding the last rose high. The driver looked at her, reached for his wallet, and pressed a bill into her freezing hand. Sofia did not even look at the money. She ran, stumbling over puddles and racing through the storm. She had to reach the pharmacy before the lights went out. Hope was finally within her grasp. Hours passed as the freezing rain lashed against Sofia, soaking through her thin clothes. Her hands trembled violently as she gripped the wicker handle of her basket. Inside, only one rose remained, its red petals drooping under the weight of the storm. She stood alone, a small shadow against the gray city. A sleek black car screeched to a halt, blocking her path. A man in a sharp suit lowered the window, staring at her blue-tinted skin. "Why are you still standing in this downpour?" he asked. Sofia clutched the basket. "I need to sell this last flower to buy my father's medicine." The man reached out, offering a $50 bill. "How much for the rose?" Sofia took a step back, shaking her head. "It is only $1. I cannot take this. It is too much." He held it further, but she stood firm. "My father says we never take money we did not earn." The man's expression softened as he pulled the bill back. "Then give me every flower you have to sell tomorrow as well." A small smile broke across Sofia's face as she nodded. The car pulled away, leaving her in the rain, no longer cold, but holding the promise of a better tomorrow. The man gripped the wheel, knuckles white as the memory of Sofia and the rain burned in his mind. Later, in his silent dining room, a crystal chandelier cast long shadows over an untouched meal. He stood, pacing the cold floor of a life that felt hollow and far too quiet. Meanwhile, Sofia sprinted through dark alleyways, clutching medicine and bread. She burst through her door, breathless. As she dumped coins onto the table, her hands trembled with joy. Her father watched her mimic the man's stoic face, whispering, "Kindness still exists," as he rested a hand on her shoulder. The next evening, Sofia waited by the headlights, A black sedan slowed. The man stepped out, shielding her with a large umbrella. "What is your name?" he asked softly. "Sofia," she replied to her shoes. When asked of her dream, she looked up. "I want to go back to school." Thinking of his own lost daughter, his throat tightened. He pressed a card into her palm. "Tomorrow," he said firmly, "you start again." Sofia stood alone under the lamp, her future finally within reach. For weeks, he visited Sofia every evening under the fading light. He brought simple gifts, like lilies and fresh bread, but mostly he brought his presence. Sofia watched him from the shadows of the corner, her grip on her worn dress loosening a little more each day, as her fear began to fade into curiosity. One night, he asked to meet her father. Inside their tiny shack by the tracks, the air hung heavy with the smell of damp wood. He stood frozen, his clean suit a sharp contrast against the peeling walls and dirt floors. "Please stay," he whispered, gently pressing a hand to the old man's trembling shoulder. They spoke for hours about broken dreams and the cold terror of leaving Sofia behind in such poverty. Before the moon reached its peak, the man placed a thick envelope on the table. It was a fortune to them, enough for rent, medicine, and a new life. He left quietly, believing the problem was solved. The next morning, Sofia sprinted after his departing car. She thrust the envelope through the window, her voice steady and proud. "We cannot take charity," she declared. The man looked at her tired face and offered a sad, knowing smile. "Then," he replied softly, "let me help you as your friend." Days later, the hospital bills were paid, and Sofia held a crisp new school uniform. But as she entered the classroom, the air felt cold. She gripped her desk until her knuckles turned white. "Look at those shoes," a boy whispered, and the room erupted in cruel laughter. Sofia kept her head down, hiding her shame in her notebook. That night, she stood on the same street corner selling flowers, refusing to let charity be her only escape. She filled every page of her workbook with precise, neat calculations, working by the dim light of street lamps. By the end of the term, her name sat at the very top of the class list. The principal walked in, his expression solemn yet proud. He tapped her shoulder and pointed toward the grand auditorium. Her moment had finally arrived. Sofia stood on the stage, watching hundreds of eyes fixed upon her. She took a breath and looked at the man in the front row. "People think poor children only need money," she said, her voice echoing through the silent hall. "But sometimes they only need someone who believes in them. I sold flowers in the rain because I thought I was invisible, but one person stopped his car and changed my life." The room remained still, then erupted into a roar of applause.